Welcome to episode 123 of I Thought I Knew How, a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts. I'm your host, Anne Frost, and this episode was recorded on October 29th, 2024. I am home in the U.S. again, and I'm going to be bringing you a few interviews over the next couple of podcasts. First, a chat with Joanna Hunter, knitwear designer, machine knitter, owner of a popular online and in-person store, Knitwear, and more. She is a woman of many talents, and I can't wait for you to hear from her yourself. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Life has been a little busier than I expected, so I didn't get another episode out in September as I had hoped to. There was some family COVID and travel and assignments and all sorts, but I wanted to get this interview out to you, and I wanted to speak to you again quickly before November hits because, as many of you are aware, November is also Wovember, the month we celebrate the wonder fiber that is wool. There is another posting challenge that will go on over on Instagram. To take part, follow I Thought I Knew How there and find the post with the list of daily prompts. Use the prompt of the day to create a post with a photo and some thoughts that relate both to the prompt and to wool, and make sure to use the hashtag Wovember2024 in the post. What is the point of this posting challenge? The thought is that I can talk on social media about wool, and chances are you've already heard me talk about it before. But if we have 500 or 600 people out there all talking about wool for the month, then that extends the reach of our celebration of wool, our education about wool, to how many other thousands of people. There are so many misconceptions about wool. And I found more than the misconceptions, so many people out there just don't even think about wool anymore. They see it as a fiber of the past, when in reality, it's continuing to plug along in the fiber marketplace for our homes, our bodies, and our environment. And it's often the better choice than what has become the easier choice to make, simply because that easier choice has a louder megaphone. There are many, many wool-based businesses out there who are taking part by offering prizes for those who post as incentives to keep going all the way through the month. This year, the prizes will be gift cards or gift vouchers to the various online shops so that you can pick your own prize. Some of them also include free shipping. Prizes range from a $20 or 15 British pound gift card to so far up to $100. And there's all sorts of increments in between. Some of the shops are offering one voucher, some are offering two. I will pick a winner each day of the event from the posts for that day, and I will send the website and the gift card code to the winner, and then they can go and pick their prize. To see all the businesses that are supporting Wovember this year and who have done so in the past, hop over to the marketplace on lovewovember.com and support those businesses that are supporting wool. And just a reminder, that marketplace is there for you all year round. So if you're like, oh, I need some beautiful thin sheep wool, where can I find that? Love Wovember Marketplace. I need some beautiful hand-dyed sock yarn. Where can I find that? Love Wovember Marketplace. I need some wool pellets. Love Wovember Marketplace. It's all there for you all year round. So don't forget, lovewovember.com. Click the Marketplace button. So as we're going into Wovember, don't forget to hop over to Instagram, follow I Thought I Knew How, find those Wovember prompts, so you can join in as we celebrate wool and educate others about its wonderful qualities. As I said, today I have an interview with Joanna Hunter to share with you. Joanna was born and raised in Shetland and has been in business for 25 years now, creating Shetland knitwear that is rooted in tradition while being modern and wearable. She has worked with design houses in the past, and as you will hear, has done work for several major motion pictures. Her store, Knitwear, on Commercial Street in Lerwick, is where most people encounter her knitwear, but the shop is also where you will find items made by other talented knitwear designers and yarn producers such as Drummy Bee, Nicole Coots, and Donna Smith, and other gift and housewares by Shetland and Scottish makers. And if you time it right and you reach out to Joanna ahead of time, you can also visit her at her studio in Scalloway. Please enjoy this interview with Joanna Hunter. Joanna, thank you so much for sitting down with me today to talk about your history with knitting.
You're very welcome.
I did say already that as I was preparing for this, I was not sure where to begin because there is so much that you've been doing through the years and that you do now. So I thought, let's try and go chronologically. And maybe we could start by you sharing some of your earliest memories of knitting or knitwear as you were growing up in Shetland.
I cannot really remember not knitting. I think, like a lot of people in Shetland, really all the women in my family knit it. My granny had a knitting machine, which I was absolutely fascinated by. And when I was about 8, she used to let me start trying knitting on her knitting machine, and it was just the most exciting thing, and I loved it. So I was knitting the bodies, like the basques and the bodies, the jumpers for her, and she was hand knitting the yokes in. And I was so excited by the speed and the machine and just all the mechanics of it. I guess that's kind of how my brain works. But also at school, we obviously had to all hand knit. I cannot remember what age we started that at, but it was everybody in the class, and the boys was stabbing one another with knitting needles, and the girls was trying to knit, and it was just carnage. But it gave us all a good basis, understanding the textiles, I suppose, and a bit of the heritage. So yeah, I kinda remember no knitting.
So, as you were growing up, were you doing any of the commercial knitting yourself, or were you just sort of helping your granny out?
Like, everybody always had as we say, a sock in their hand. Everybody always had knitting. You went to visit somebody, everybody took their knitting with them. So I guess, like, with the jumpers, when I was knitting on the machine, she was knitting that commercially. So, I
Mhm.
mean, she was checking everything I was doing, and she taught me well, and it's pretty simple to knit a kinda basque and lay it on for the bodies, and especially on Granny's machine, it was a well looked after universal, if I remember. So I mean, yeah. So I was at that age knitting it for to help her commercially, but I didn't, I suppose, see it like that. It was just fun.
Yeah, just fun times hanging out with grandma. So, what was it that prompted you to then take this sort of to the next level and begin studying textiles at UHI?
So I did art at school, and I was creative, and I did sewing as well. I was always sewing. My mum sewed a lot. I made my own clothes as a teenager. So I was always quite creative in that respect. And then I tried weaving as well and printing. So printed textiles. And very quickly I was like, no, it's definitely knit that I enjoy. And machine knitting for me was, I love the speed and how quickly you can do things. And I hate to say that, I mean, everything in my life is 100 miles an hour. So hand knitting for me is too slow. So I love the machine side of it. And I love creating shapes and designing products. So it was just a natural thing that I decided I wanted to study knitted textiles.
Yeah.
And at the time when I was doing that, or planning to do that, then the Shetland UHI was really the best place to study it, because not only did you get the design, you got the kind of machine operating side, you got a bit of commercial side. There was a marketing side of it as well, and the business side. So it was quite a well-rounded course. So much to my dismay, I was stuck still in Shetland at uni, rather as getting to go away and have fun.
You touched on something that I was thinking to talk about later on, but I think it's probably smart to bring it up early because I know some hand knitters, and I will admit I was one of them. And you're actually the one who sort of changed my mind about this. But some hand knitters see machine knitting as a lesser craft or a just industrial or, cheating, to put it in air quotes. I would say a visit to your studio is what changed my perception of that because as part of our visit, you walked us through your design process, talking about your inspiration, how you then go about experimenting, and then you actually went over to the machine and you created a swatch there, and seeing how that process worked. And even seeing you sort of walked us through when you use the computer, how that all works. And I came to realize myself that machine knitting is just using a different tool. Like if we wanted to be super purist about it, I suppose we could say that any knitting that's using needles is cheating. We should just be doing finger knitting. Like what are we doing with this technology of knitting needles? And I wonder how much you run up against that perception and how you handle that when you do.
I think, I mean, there is obviously people that think we're cheating and it's too fast, and but the products that we create are they're some of them's quite complex, and a lot of the things that we do can be done really hand knitting. And
Mhm.
I guess for me, like it's a skill. Everybody at Ninian is kind of well trained in how to use the tools available to us to make the garments. So machine knitting, whether we're using the domestic flatbed knitting machines or we have a Shima industrial machine, I mean, there's a lot of skill involved in operating that machines, programming it, designing the products to go onto it, getting your consistent size. And so, I mean, it's a different thing, but you certainly couldn't be selling a lot of our jumpers in the numbers that we sell for the price that we can sell it for if it was hand knitted. It's
Mhm.
two entirely different products in my mind.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
guess. I
agree.
don't know if I answered that very well.
No, I do agree. I think it's definitely a different skill set. And as you say, it allows you to do different things. And I think that a lot of the times people from away from Shetland, they see things and they assume that they don't realize how involved machine knitting is with what's being created here.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, when you're knitting something on the machine, you're knitting the panels, or how we do it is we're knitting the panels, and then it's going on to the linker, which is the machine that sews it together, and that's a stitch for stitch process that we use. It's again a skilled job. Then
Right.
it's hand finished, and we still hand finish it in traditional ways. We didn't cut corners. There's many ways that we could do that faster, but we like the quality of how we're doing it.
Hmm.
And then yeah, for there it's washed. That's again a very calculated bit of the process to get the stitch density to the size that we want, and then it's dried, pressed, and labeled. So there's still a huge amount of hand processes that's going on
Right.
in the creation of every garment. Before a product is getting onto a machine, it's still starting life in a sketchbook.
Right.
So I'm guessing that's the same kind of, and you're still trying to design the stitch pattern. We do that obviously in like digital form now, but that used to be done still in a kind of graph bit of paper or whatever. So there is still a lot of the same processes involved before you get it onto the machine.
Yeah, and this sort of builds into the next step of your process, right? As your progress as a machine knitter, where after UHI, you were working with some major fashion houses. Do you want to tell us
So,
about that?
so when so after I left the college, then I set up in a bedroom in my parents' house. Then as it kind of grew, I took on another bedroom and then took over like a wee area outside the bedrooms until eventually they were like, "You've got to get your own studio and move out. You're taking over the house." So they were really supportive. I think I was there for about a year, maybe slightly over, until I got a studio in town. And then we were, yeah, going to trade fairs. So I didn't really sell much locally. I did some craft fairs and things, but mostly I was going to Asia. So we were doing like department stores there. Some of it was collections for specific companies. Some of it was
Mhm.
just selling our own products to companies. And then we went to America. So we were selling like swatches, stitch patterns. So it was like designs that they would then use in on their garments. So it
Mhm.
wasn't the garments we were selling, it was the stitch.
Sort of the motifs, I guess, part,
Yeah,
other some people call it the actual you would design the motifs that they would then apply to their designs.
yeah.
Correct, yeah.
And but so I mean, I was completely out of my depth. I was like, what, 20, 21 in New York with a suitcase full of samples, thinking I was in Sex and the City. It was like, uh, but I mean, it was great experience. I loved it. And then, but I didn't enjoy the process of then seeing my bits, designs on other garments. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to just do my own products. So for then, after that, then I kind of stopped doing that. And it was kind of stressful. I didn't, as much as it was good fun, it was quite stressful. I think, especially because I was new in the business, I didn't really know how far you were meant to be taking all this. And
Mm.
so I concentrated back on my own designs and going to trade fairs. And then we were selling to Asia, the UK, a bit to Scandinavia, and the US to department stores and shops, which was more what I was happy to do. And then opened the shop in 2003 because I was like, really need to have a local market for what we're selling.
We should talk about your knitwear because some of it I would say would fall under the sort of traditional umbrella, and others I would say are sort of traditional adjacent. Could you take a few minutes and tell us about your knitwear and the inspiration behind it and what your hopes were as you were starting your knitwear line?
Yeah, when I started, of course, I was young and I was like, oh, I'm not going to have any of this fuddy duddy knitwear that everybody wears. Because obviously, I grew up wearing Shetland knitwear and I wanted to wear a turquoise shell suit. Do you know what I mean? I
Mhm.
didn't want to be wearing a hand knitted beautiful jumper. Uh, so I kind of thought that I wanted to get away from that and do modern, cool designs. So they've always had a inspiration of Fair Isle usually in there. And then I guess as it's kind of evolved, so I kind of had Fair Isle patterns, but in modern shapes. So we did like dresses originally, and I can't even remember all the stuff we've had, everything. It was just kind of like, but using different colors, maybe clashing colors, bigger motifs. And then as it's kind of evolved, I've used more and more of my own vintage collection, as I would say. It's like all the knitwear that's come through our families is my inspiration. So it's kind of taken more of a twist to being more traditional, but still with I think, is different shaping. I always like to look at a design as a seamstress to begin with, rather as a flat jumper, and try and work out where my shaping's, how's that going to make it look different. How can we change this up a bit? I don't know. It just it's just kind of evolved. But yeah, at the moment it's very much kind of inspired, I would say, by this kind of borough, the island that I live on. It's very much inspired by the textiles that's around there, I think. I'm never sure where it just kind of happens
Yeah.
sometimes. I don't know.
Well,
It's
I think
difficult to explain the design process or how your knitwear's going because you start off thinking that you're doing one thing and it evolves into something completely different by the end of it. And
yeah.
sometimes the mistakes that happens actually ends up being a focal part of thinking, oh, that's actually kind of cool. How could we make that bit work in the garment? Which is maybe no, I don't know if that's a normal way to design, but
Well, I think we all have those happy accidents in whatever we do that, spark some creativity that wasn't there before that we can run with. I think that your experience as a sewer does come through with some of your designs. I'm thinking of like your crossover cardigan, which maybe is traditional and I just haven't seen traditional examples, but to me looks more of a modern take on a cardigan where you have the flaps sides. I don't know how to describe it. That cross up high at the collarbone and button in place, and then is, sort of open towards the bottom.
So that's
for
kind of a good
creating.
example of, I mean, there's no pattern on the original one of that, but all the fashionings is used as a feature. So they're really visible, which is not something that's maybe normal in that, and I don't know, in Shetland knitwear, is it or is it not? But that garment, the fashionings is used as the design. So they're really deliberately visible. And then we kind of recreated that into another version of that garment where it has one Fair Isle panel and then Fair Isle trims on it. And again, the fashionings on every plain panel is the kind of obvious design feature. And the Fair Isle was meant to be slightly in the background. Whether that's how it comes across, I don't know, but that was the plan.
It's lovely, and I know from, having tour groups here, it's a very popular style.
Yes.
The ladies are like, "Ooh," and everybody has to try it on, and a lot of them go home with it.
And it's good as well if you're pregnant. So the two
Yes.
times I was pregnant, because your belly can stick out the front. So
Or, a lady of a certain age, our
yeah.
shapes start to change. So one thing I've noticed that you do, Joanna, is you've named the patterns you use rather than the garments that you create. So for instance, you have Auntie May's that shows up as the Auntie May's cardigan, the Auntie May's sweater or jumper. And then Vintage Fair Isle is another pattern name that shows up as different things, different shapes, and different ways to wear it. And can you share a little bit about why you've decided to do that? Is that based on the source of the inspiration, perhaps?
Yeah, so it's kind of the story behind that collection. So I like to design a pattern, and the inspiration on how that's come about. Auntie May's, for example, was my mum's godmother that was known to us as Auntie May. She was a beautiful knitter, and it was lots of different bits of patterns that she had over and over again, and things that had been knitted. And I reworked how they were all laid out and changed it, and then designed a collection based on that. So it's like a nod to the inspiration. The same, we've got the Lizzie's Fair Isle. Lizzie was my granny, and that was based on, in her graph, like chart book, after she died, there was a page that fell out, and it was a bit of a pattern, and she never finished it. So it was one of those things that I thought, okay, I'm going to finish this. How would Granny and maybe had this done? I'm not quite sure it's how she would have done it, but it's how I think she might have done it. It was one of those things that went back and forth in my family WhatsApp, with people saying, no, Granny wouldn't have done that. But it's, I like to put a nod back to the person or the timer when it was inspired.
Hmm.
That's what inspired me to design it. And
Yeah.
yeah, the Vintage Fair Isle that was based on patterns that came out of my hoarding of old knitwear for the family. And it's a few different garments again that's come from my grandmother's, great grandmother's, worked into kind of again a nod back to my dad's university days and jumpers. So yeah, I guess that's why it's all named. And because I'll do a collection based on the stitch pattern, and then I like to build, yeah, the collection around that rather as every garment being different.
I love that your pieces, even though they have, some of them have very modern shaping and design to them, they still have the roots there, or a nod to the traditional knitting of the area at the same time. I think that's really beautiful. And I think I read somewhere that where you were saying, and you touched on it again here, that growing up, you have this perception of the local hand knits when you grow up having to wear it all the time as being sort of like old fashioned, or not as cool and comfortable. And so to be able to take the inspiration for that and bring it sort of into something that younger people or more sort of fashionista people would be interested in making part of their wardrobe, I think is a important part of keeping the tradition alive, even if it's not, wholly traditional, as however you want to define that?
I think that for me, I didn't really think about, is it traditional? Is it modern? It's just what I've designed. And I think that
Yeah.
sometimes you can be far too constrained by worrying about what box something fits into. Whereas in actual fact, I just want to design something that I like and think my customers is going to enjoy. And in
Right.
fact, yesterday is a prime example of I was designing well, it's a new collection. We're kind of adding on to a collection, but it's new products. And the staff and me, everybody at Ninian was kind of disagreeing with me on the angle that I'm going on it. And normally I'm totally, yeah, I'll listen to opinions. And I was like, no, do you know what? This is what I want to do. It might not sell, but this is the product I want to create. So
Mhm.
there's a few raised eyebrows. So we'll see when it's launched whether it works, but it doesn't, like I'm no thinking too hard about where does it fit? Is it traditional? Is it this, that, or the next? It's just what is in my head is I think this is going to be nice. And I think that my customers will like it.
You make excellent points there because and also it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show because I do speak a lot about Shetland. I have had a lot of Shetland knitters on the show in the past, and I think it's easy to overlook or miss the fact that there is a lot of modern knitting and modern design going on here as well. It's not all the Fair Isle yolks and the all overs being designed here. And obviously I am a fan of those as well, but there's a lot of really beautiful modern knitting being done here by machine knitters and hand knitters both.
I think as well, like we had like a stall down in Covent Garden for a few years, and the product that I was selling there, it's the same product, but the customers that was in London buying for where we shop there didn't know me or know really about Shetland. So they were just
Mhm.
buying a garment because they like it, the design. So yeah, there's kind of two elements to this is that we are selling products, like our website, we're selling products all over the world. And a lot of the people that's buying that really doesn't have any interest in the fact that it's a Shetland product. So it doesn't really matter the lineage of my designs, I guess.
Right. Yeah, they just want something beautiful to wear, and lo
Yeah.
and behold, here it is. So you mentioned you do sell at the website, but you also have the shop in town that you've already spoken about. So I'm curious about this because Ninian, the shop is called Ninian, and it's right there on Commercial Street, and it is full of beautiful products. There's a whole wall of Joanna Hunter knitwear, but also there's jewelry and things for your home and gift items and really lovely things for babies and adults. And it's just a wonderful place to just go poke around. And I never get out without buying something. It's a very dangerous store for me. Um, So it's easy to look at something and just think, well, yeah, no brainer. What a brilliant idea. But I'm curious at the time when you were opening it, I might be wrong on the timing, but I think it would have been before Shetland Wool Week was really big, before the tourism has really exploded here, it feels like in the last several years. And I wonder if it felt like a no-brainer as you were starting it, or if there was that element of what am I doing? Is this a good idea or not?
Well, yeah. I think that so I was starting to get more and more like I was doing a lot of craft fairs and things with the knitwear. And it just kind of felt like the next step was to actually have a shop.
Mm.
But I was aware that there probably, as you say, it wasn't a big tourist destination. It was very much a local shop, really. We had a local market. So, yeah, when we opened, initially the idea was to have the knitwear, but also to have as much local made products with the same kind of ethos as us. So it wasn't a mass produced, it was design led. And I tried to get as much things from throughout the UK with the same idea, small producers. And then when we moved to the bigger shop 14 years ago, I think it was, and it was just getting harder and harder to get enough products locally. So in both shops, yeah, we've had to keep bringing in different products, but now it's become, I guess, a gift shop in a way. We have, yeah, kind of everything for your card and your wrapping paper to a gift to a nice jumper to jewellery. But still, we try and have as much local products as we possibly can get, but
Hmm.
quality ones. That's the
Right.
key, I think. We've got a really strong local market. We've got really great customers. They really support us, especially in COVID. I was just gobsmacked at how supportive the local market was in trying to keep us going. It was
Hmm.
brilliant. And we've got great staff, and it's just an absolute joy to have the shop. I love it.
It really is a lovely place to pop in. So if any of you do find yourself in Shetland, I will say one of the great things about your shop and the items that you carry there is that some of them are kind of, they can be harder places to get to, especially if you're here, a day or two, or you're here on one of the cruise ships or something. Like you can't necessarily get out to Bura to get to Donna's studio to find her yarn there, or my name's blanking on the potter that you carry there.
Oh, the North Row pottery.
Yeah, North Row Pottery, you're not going to make it if you're just here briefly. But you can find it there. Like some of these really beautiful makers items can be found there. So it's really a great shop to go poke around in, as I said.
Thank
And of
you.
course, try on Joanna's beautiful knitwear.
We have, yeah, I mean, it's just a bit of a social place as well. There's always a lot of chatting, and
Hmm.
I think all the girls that work with us in Ninian are just super friendly and nice, and it's just kind of a, yeah, nice place to meet and chat and look at
Yeah.
things.
I would say too, I'm just going to throw this out there. It also feels very much like a women supporting women type shop.
Oh, yeah.
Not just with what you carry, but with the girls that you have working in the store, who several of them are budding designers and knitwear makers themselves. And it feels like, judging by the shop and by the social media, that it's really an activity in lifting those who are trying to do that here.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is that just to try and, yeah, help everybody achieve what they want to achieve and make it a happy place to be. And yeah, I love that everybody has got their own wee things going on as well. They're all makers in one way or another, and which, I mean, I guess it naturally draws creative people to work at Ninian, because everybody that works with us in the shop is also producing knitwear. So everybody's kind of trained in everything, because as you know, when you're knitting, things can go wrong. So the
Mhm.
best way we find is if something's going wrong that day, you stop doing it, somebody else takes it over and you do something else. So it means that, yeah, you don't get too bored. There's always something different that you can go and do if you get fed up, um, which makes it hopefully a nice place to work.
One thing, just to shift gears entirely, one thing we haven't talked about yet is your involvement in film, where you've been involved in creating some of the costuming for some fairly big films, I would say. How did that come to be? How did that connection get made?
Um, I don't know, really. I think they initially found me on Instagram.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so yeah, they contacted us looking for advice or production. And so we kind of went back and forth with the costume department for a couple of months until on the first one until we decided actually maybe we should do this. Um, and then it was, yeah, it
Do you
was,
want
it's
to name? Do you want to name the?
so the biggest one we've done was 1917, the war movie. And I think we made about 900 scarves and I don't know how many pair of wristlets, but we kind of got the design brief in that it was meant to look hand knitted by the Women's Institute using old yarns, and it had to have holes in it and flaws, and they had to be different. So it kind of initially, when we first took it on, they weren't speaking about that numbers, and so we had to knit them on domestic machines so that we could make them faulty, but you were
Mhm.
knitting faults in it that would hold, so you couldn't just drop a stitch. And then it just kept going and going and going and going and going until eventually we had to say we cannot do anymore because we've got to get on with our own knitting. But it was fascinating to be involved in that one. And it's all very secretive and NDAs and code names and yeah. And then we've done another few since. We did Napoleon, the
Okay.
yeah, but it's not got very good reviews, so we've no advertised that one very well.
But let's talk about the knitwear, not the movie.
So with that one again, it was like wristlets, and again it had to be knitted looking raw. Am I getting that right? Is that one? Yeah. And then we did another one after that, and it was children's garments. I cannot tell you the name of that one because it's still not been released. And again, that was more, that's kind of like 1800s, early 1900s copying. They sent was like images of garments that we tried to recreate. And again,
Okay.
it's all, we've done all this stuff on domestic machines because it's kind of lends itself more to looking like a hand knitted product. But
Right.
obviously, you couldn't hand knit it. It would be impossible to knit that many products in the time scale that you're given. So,
Well, did I ever tell you my story of watching 1917?
no.
Okay. So this was before our first visit with the Mac and Our Way Through Shetland tour. So I had no idea. And then I heard this story and I was like, if I tell Joanna, she's gonna think I'm making this up, having heard this story. But so I went to see it because I have a thing for war films, especially period war films. And I was, sort of at the beginning, there's all these soldiers and they're all in their uniforms and they're wearing their scarves and things. And they're all sort of in a group, on the battlefield and down in the trenches and things. And I'm like, that's a lot of scarves that they did. That's amazing. Like, and I'm looking at them and going, like, they all look hand knit and they're all roughed up. And like, someone really put a lot of attention to detail into this. Like, it's not like they're all run in the same way or whatever. Like, these look like they were all done individually. This is impressive. And in my mind, they'd like gone into some town somewhere and just recruited everyone to knit all of these things for this show, and I'm just like, that's amazing. Like, wow, whoever, like, brilliant attention to detail. Loved the movie. It was one of my favorite movies that year. And then as we're preparing to go, Jolene was like, "Yeah, Joanna's done something for a movie. I can't remember which one, but she did something recently for a movie." And we walk into the studio, and you have the poster stand like there on the wall, and I was like, "Wait a minute!" And then as part of your presentation, you talked about it, and I'm like, "What?" Like, totally blew my mind. So, well done. You
Thank you.
absolutely nailed it. As a hand knitter, I was just like, how did they do this? How did they manage to do all of this? And little did I know it was you and your people had figured out the way and made it was totally convincing.
Oh, yeah, well, the girls, like, I mean, it did get to the stage that we were just like, I cannot knit anymore. I cannot face
Right.
knit another one. I cannot knit holes and things anymore. And yeah, that was really when it completely stopped, was when the girls at Ninian was just like, oh, I can't face it anymore. So we're like, okay, we're done.
Well,
Sorry, no
that's
more.
I mean, because you see the sheer volume of it on the screen. Like, all of these men are wearing these scarves. And so my first thought was, well, okay, so did they get just like stockinette and rough them up? Like, did they buy it in sheets and, are they sort of secretly hemming it? Like, I'm trying to figure it out. And the only thing I could come up with was they had to have recruited hand knitters to do this. And of course not. Of course they found a way to make it work, in a way that made sense. And like, again, well done. Amazing. It was,
Thank you. I know it was
yeah.
fun. It was fun to be part of it. We went as a staff outing to go and watch it, and nobody followed the film. We were all like, "There's the scarves! There's the scarves!" So yeah, no, it's fun, but I'm kind of feeling a bit like I'm done. Maybe with costume stuff. It's been really good fun, but I don't know. We've got so many designs that I need to get programmed and sampled, and there's so many things I'm trying to do at the moment that's more fun.
Yeah. What? More fun than the movies?
I don't know. We'll see. They were inquiring again about another. I don't know. I'm very like that. I jump in and out of things.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, you can only do so much. Yeah, you can only do so much.
we'll
So,
see what happens with it. I don't know.
okay. See wheels turning. Enjoy this one.
I'm kind of more excited. I've got a few collaborations going on locally at the moment that
Mhm.
is exciting me.
As you have these collaborations come your way, or as you have ideas for something new that starts tinkering around in your brain, how do you go through the process of playing it out, deciding if it's going to work, sort of testing things? How does that all work for you?
So normally I still start in a sketchbook.
Mhm.
I might draw a shape first, or I might start working with a stitch pattern. Sometimes the two didn't go together very well, but it could start anyway, really. And then for there, usually I'll take the textiles onto the computer. So I'll program a pattern there. Quite often I'll digitally swatch it. So, I mean, obviously, when you're knitting commercially, the cost of your materials is a big factor. So, digitally swatching colors is, I can kind of refine it down to roughly what I think I'm going to do. And then I'll take that onto the machine. And usually on the domestic machine, I'll do loads of swatches and play with the colors there until we start to build a bit of a palette. And then for there, I will take the stitch and try and put that together with a garment on paper, roughly. And then for there, we have to have to take it into the design software where we actually are then drawn out the garment or
And so
accessory.
that's for like you have a Shimaseki, so
Yeah.
that's
So
like programming it into the computer program
yeah.
for yeah.
So we have to get like I mean, we kind of use a few different types of fabrics. So we know roughly can rows and stitches per centimeter as to what we're going to get. So we will size up. I always start with a size small. And because I'm small and it fits me, but as I get bigger, as I get older, the smalls are getting bigger as well. So I'm still a small. But yeah, so I'll try and design the first one the way I want it to look on me or one of the girls in the shop. And then, yeah, so we draw out on the Shima and we'll knit the first swatches, the first garment, get that together. And usually at that point, we'll sit as a team. Everybody will look at it and give feedback on it. We'll figure out what needs to be changed size wise on the trims, maybe moving fashionings. And we tend to try and get the garment set first before we worry too much about the feeders and the colour order and everything in it. And then for there, we'll grade up the way. Um, and we work slowly on each size and get that right before we get the next size done. And
Mhm.
then by the time we finish that, then we'll start building in accessories at the same time. And it just kind of evolves, I guess.
Mhm.
But it takes quite a while to get the whole collection. You're at least 6 months, I would say, until we get it in the shop. So
Mhm.
the one we're working on at the moment, we've been working on for a few months, but this last, like post Wool Week, this last week's, we've been able to kind of earmark a bit of time to sit down and get the designs started properly. But yeah, it's kind of, and sometimes you're halfway through it and it's just no working, and so we shelve it. and it just sits, and then you might come back to it at a later date and suddenly it all becomes clear and you can change something and it works again. Yeah, I guess that's kind of how it happens.
Excellent. I love hearing people's process, especially, in this day and age of fast fashion where it seems like, the low quality clothing is just getting pumped out into the marketplace so quickly and so poorly. And we're just churning through it. To hear the thoughtful process for a quality garment to come to market, to be done properly with, appropriate techniques so that it's something that you can continue to wear for ages and ages.
Well,
We
that's really the thing is we're no creating a fast fashion product in that it's no following trends of that moment. So the idea at my products is that it's no going to date. It's kind of
Right.
classic. It's no following immediate trends. So it's something that you can keep for a very long time is the idea. I like the
Yeah.
idea of things being passed on as well. I mean, my daughter is very much stealing all my old jumpers that I started with when I first started. Yeah, she's suddenly, I think, thinking some of it's cool. So there we go. The next
Good.
generation's wearing it.
Excellent. And that's an excellent plug for wool too, right? Like it can
Yeah.
last. We don't have to be quite as precious with it as we think. That's a beautiful fiber that can last us generation to generation.
Yeah, as long as you look after it, it's yeah, it'll keep going and keep going. Yeah, we use lamb's wools, and they didn't need a lot of washing because of the natural lanolin that's in there, and it's just a really nice fiber to use. I enjoy
Mhm.
it.
Well, you've hinted at a few things coming up. I'm wondering if you have anything coming up in the future that you'd be willing to share with us that, we can look out for.
Well, what's been on the table this week is the Lizzie's Fair Isle. I've got a jumper that I'm working on. It's a floating jacquard, two colours
Mm.
with a rib and a boat neck. And it's going to be quite boxy and short, which is a bit controversial because obviously women of my age tend to have a bit of a belly. But that in my head, I'm seeing it as being a layered garment. So you'll be wearing something under it that's a bit longer. This is how I have it in my head. So I've
Mhm.
almost got it there, got the pattern done, nearly got the first sample finished. I'm just reworking the sleeves, and then we'll size that up. And we've just reworked a tank top in the same design. So we were knitting them on domestic machines, but we've moved that across to the Shima and we've tweaked the design massively. So the ribs has all been changed, and I think it's a better product now. And that's something I think that we have been going back across and looking at all our designs and tweaking things that maybe the customer will never notice, but it's things that's annoying me.
Yeah.
Moving a buttonhole by 8 needles or something like that. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on at the moment. And what else are we working on? I don't know. There's a lot going on in the sketchbook. I'm just about to go on holiday, and that's usually when I'm on holiday, I get quite a lot of designs starts life. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
my mind switches off for the day to day.
Some open space for ideas to move into.
Yeah, so I always have a wee sketchbook in my handbag, so I usually start drawing or charting something when I'm away. So we'll see.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, something to look forward to for sure. So if people are in Shetland, they're of course welcome to stop by Ninian on Commercial Street. Where else can people find you if they are not lucky enough to make the visit here?
So we have a website, which is ninianshetland.co.uk. And on the website, we've got all the knitwear, and we have a selection of the Shetland products that we offer and some other bits and bobs from the shop. And we try and update it as much as we can, but it's so busy that it tends to be a bit slower getting things online. So you can find us there, but we didn't actually sell anywhere else at the moment. Our knitwear is just sold through us because we've been so busy we couldn't keep up. So, which is quite a nice position to be in. And if you're in Shetland, we've got the shop on Commercial Street, Ninian. And we've also got a workshop in Scalwa, which is open by appointment. So if you phone into the shop, then you can always arrange a time to pop out and see what we do out here. But yeah, and our social media, which we've got Instagram and Facebook. So we are at Ninian Shetland, and you can see snapshots of what's going on in the workshop and the studio and the shop and some of the carnage that goes on in the life of Ninian.
Excellent. And it is a great social media account to follow, actually. Like, as I was saying, you get a sense for the brand and the people behind the brand by just following Ninian on Instagram. So I do recommend. They're a good follow. And I'll put all the links that Joanna just mentioned in the show notes for people so that they'll be right there for you to click through to. And I just want to thank you again, Joanna, for taking the time to sit with me and tell me about the business and the work that you do as a machine knitter and your creative process too. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for asking me. It's been very enjoyable.
Many thanks again to Joanna for taking the time to speak with me. Be sure to hop over to the show notes to find all the links to connect with her and have a look at her beautiful knitwear. A few more things before I go. Just very briefly before I run off again, Wovember starts in just days. Hop over to Instagram and join in. Follow I Thought I Knew How there for all the details. It will likely be a few more weeks at least before I'm back with my next interview. Possibly not until mid-December, though that is the worst case scenario. This is already just a very busy time of year for me, and with school assignments, I am frankly barely keeping my head above water. If I do not appear back in your ears before December, a reminder that after Wovember, we go right into the Woolly Winter Countdown with Jana over on the Purl Together channel on YouTube. And then starting the day after Christmas, so December 26th, it will be time to do the Yarn Stash Restash when we take a look at all of our Yarn Stash items, get them stored away properly for the new year of crafting. While I am super duper busy with the second half of this term, the best place to stay on top of all that is going on will be on Instagram, where you can find me as I Thought I Knew How. It's simply much easier for me to make a post there and keep folks up to date than it is to release an episode. And life, frankly, is about streamlining for the next 2 months. I will breathe again in January. Okay, thank you for listening to the end. I'm off. I hope to be back with you again in the next few weeks. In the meantime, thank you for listening and knitting with me for a bit. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review the show in the app you use to download it. And I'd love it if you would share the episode with a friend. The show notes are where you will find links to the things mentioned in the show, so be sure to check those out. Find me on my social media accounts as I Thought I Knew How, except on X, where it's just Thought I Knew How. The groups on various platforms are all called I Thought I Knew How Podcast. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.